Welcome to Nugget 203 with Steve Groman. We are going to take you to one of the most splendid, gorgeous places in the continental U.S. We had a meeting in Montana, and because of issues with the motorhome and brakes, we decided to take a southerly route to the state of Washington. We are going to take you to one of the most beautiful, splendid places in the continental U.S., Grand Teton National Park. It's a place that everyone should have on their bucket list way at the top. It was established in 1929 and encompasses more than 310,500 acres of northwestern Wyoming. Of its many peaks, Grand Teton is the highest at 13,766 feet. That's almost 3 miles, isn't it?
It missed being a 14, didn't it?
It missed being
a 14er, but it got close.
That's why it's in Wyoming and not in Colorado.
I guess maybe so. It's still beautiful.
The park's other spectacular features include large Jackson Lake and the winding Snake River. Fall brings brilliant colors to the aspen trees in the lower elevations of Wyoming's Grand Teton National Park, and we did hit this in its peak. The aspens were amazing.
We saw a lot of aspens. We know why they call them quaking aspens.
Right. Once we get off Highway 83 on the Saturday Travel and History Tips, we will take you to Yellowstone and the Tetons and show you it from a different angle. But the purpose of these nuggets is from a creation evolution standpoint. We spent a Saturday at Teton, and we did a few things that people probably do not do when they go to Tetons, because most people go to see the lakes, take boat rides, hike, and see the Grand Tetons. One of the things we did, well, actually it was the first thing we did, is we took the detour to the Splendid Panorama atop Signal Mountain before the road's end at Jackson Lake.
Yeah, the ride up there was interesting, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, we got behind someone that was terrified, I guess, to drive on a mountain road, and they weren't kind enough to take the pullouts.
No, and they had one of those big sprinters. They're tall, and he was all over the place. Couldn't see around him. He didn't know what he's doing. He didn't know where he's going, and he wouldn't pull over even when he couldn't have time.
So we understand being frightened or unsure of driving in this type of situation. But use the pullouts, people.
Use the pullouts. That's what they put them there for.
All right, so we did make it up to the top of the summit. It actually didn't face the Tetons. It faced eastward. And this is one of the signs that we saw.
The sign on top said, Valley View. From this vantage point, notice how the landscape spreads before you. Geology controls the park's natural communities, from valley wetlands to the mountain alpine. Ice Age glaciers periodically blanketed this landscape, last retreating 14,000 years ago, leaving behind river channels, outwash plains, glacial moraines, potholes, deep canyons, and jagged peaks. Was it 14,000 years ago?
Nope.
I didn't think so.
It was more like 4,400. So again, this is what the glaciers left.
These things definitely arose when the valley sank down, didn't they?
Yeah, all the evidence is there, and it's gorgeous. But it wasn't 14,000. The timing is off.
Glaciers act like conveyor belts, depositing rocky debris as ridges called moraines that contain rocks ground to the consistency of flour. There's some truth in that, isn't it? There's a lot of movement.
Right.
Those glaciers, that amount of ice can move anything, anywhere. Rock flour retains moisture, allowing lodgepole pine forests to flourish on these moraines.
The lodgepole pines are one of the most beautiful pines there are. Although all pines are beautiful in their own way, these are striking.
They have a neat shape to them. As glaciers retreat, blocks of ice drop to the valley floor and become buried in outwash gravel. When the ice melts, the resulting depression or pothole forms a pocket of forest or wetland surrounded by a sea of sagebrush in the outwash plain.
And that's where we went next. We went out on the edge and saw the gorgeous views, as you can see, and all the lodgepole pine that grow in this rock flower. And then there was another section where you could walk out farther. But then as we drove down, sprinter free, we went to a turnout. It's funny because when you go to the Tetons, most people are going to go see the glaciers and the mountains. And I bet that not too many people stop at this
see that one. No,
or they do pull up and they see potholes. They go,
we were the only ones out there. They turn around and they leave right away.
Right, but we had read about the potholes on the sign, and then we had a little lunch.
Curious depressions known as potholes dimple the glacial outwash plain here. Some 15,000 years ago, sediment carried by glacial meltwater buried huge blocks of ice that calved off the retreating glaciers. As the ice melted, the ground sank, leaving depressions behind, known locally as potholes, but known more commonly as kettles.
Huh. I never really knew that, so I'm glad to have read this. Potholes are kettles. Okay, because you hear about the kettle moraines.
Kettle lakes.
Kettle lakes and moraines. Okay, so I'm not a glacial pro here. But do you notice already an inconsistency in the signs? One sign said 14,000, and this one says 15,000.
Well, they're not going to be the same, are they?
Well, didn't they say that's when the glaciers were here?
Yeah, but they never are the same.
The signs or the truth?
The signs. And
okay.
Or their truth.
Our truth is still the same.
It's never the same.
We know that it happened during the flood. We got 150 days days, give or take. They've got 1,000 years already on this one side. Continuing on.
All right. Kettles are bowl-shaped and range in size from 15 feet to 1/4 mile in diameter. These depressions begin as steep-sided features, but wind and water smooth the edges and deposit sediments in the bottom.
Trees take root in some kettles, creating forest inlands, while water pools in other kettles forming tiny wetland communities. On the semi-arid outwash plain, these islands provide food and shelter for a variety of wildlife. Kettles are fragile, isolated ecosystems under constant stress from human impacts. Okay, here we go. Typing in the political correctness. As humans, they always have to make us bad, don't they?
They always make us the bad guys.
Everything is to make humanity insignificant, minimizes, or make us look bad.
Right.
And it's a shame. Essentially, fossil icebergs. The potholes here relate to kettles found in other glaciated regions of North America, providing insight into our changing environment. And here are a few views of this particular pothole. We were walking out there on this little trail. I was like, oh, that's what we're going to see. Okay, I got it. We did have a beautiful time looking and driving around, but we want to end with Genesis 8, 1 through 14.
And God remembered Noah and every living thing and all the cattle that was with him in the ark. And God made a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters assuaged. The fountains also of the deep and the windows of heaven were stopped. And the rain from heaven was restrained. The waters returned from off the earth continually. And after the end of 150 days, the waters were abated. And the ark rested in the 7th month on the 17th day of the month upon the mountains of Ararat.
And the waters decreased continually until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, were the tops of the mountains seen. And it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made. And he sent forth a raven, which went forth to and fro, until the waters were dried up from off the earth.
Also he sent forth a dove from him, to see if the waters were abated from off the face of the ground. But the dove found no rest for the sole of her foot, and she returned unto him in the ark. For the waters were on the face of the whole earth. Then he put forth his hand, and took her, and pulled her in unto him in the ark. And he stayed yet another 7 days, and again he sent forth the dove out of the ark. And the dove came into him in the evening, and lo, in her mouth was an olive leaf plucked off, so no one knew that the waters were abated from off the earth.
And he stayed yet another 7 days, and sent forth the dove, which returned not again unto him any more. And it came to pass in the 601st year, in the 1st month, the 1st day of the month, the waters were dried up from off the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark, and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. And in the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, was the earth dried. I bet they were tickled.
I imagine so. I would be, if it was me, I would be definitely ready to get off of that boat.
Me too.
Locked in for a year.
I do like being on boats, like being on ferries and barges. You can ask Steve. Any chance to ride a ferry, I love it. But for a year?
That's a long time.
That's a long time. It was probably a little stinky. All
Probably
right.
messy.
Well, thank you.